Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharpe, and headline number one this week, Donald Trump and Joe Biden have agreed to two presidential debates on June 27th and September 10th. The one scheduled for June will be the earliest general election presidential debate in modern history. I mean, it's happening before their parties even officially nominate them. It will be the debate featuring the oldest combined age of two presidential candidates at 159, and it will be the first debate between a former and current president since the 1800s, which these guys are so old maybe they remember. Headline number two, the first congressional debate of Arizona's primary election season took place Wednesday night, where 6 Democrats who want to replace Republican David Schweikert in Congress mostly agreed on the issues, one exception being candidate Kurt Cromer, who says the word crisis should not be applied to our border situation. And headline number three, Democratic U.S. Congressman Ruben Gallego, who wants to be, of course, a U.S. Senator. His campaign announced that $19 million in media ad buys have been reserved for the fall, the largest of any Senate candidate in the nation. And that's on top of the $23 million that a Democrat-aligned PAC, a political action committee, has pledged for him. Meanwhile, Republican Senate candidate Kari Lake actually started running her very first broadcast ad this week, and her campaign says they're reserving $10 million in future ads, although she has zero support from outside groups, at least at this point. My guest this week on the AZ Political Podcast is Jon Gabriel, a columnist, an editor, a content creator who has covered everything from public policy and politics to pop culture. Jon's opinion pieces have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the USA Today, the New York Post, the National Review, the Arizona Republic, and on CNN. Fun fact, he's a Navy veteran who actually served on a nuclear submarine. Yeah. That just makes you fascinating right now. And you kind of look like a captain with the mustache.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Now.
Exactly.
Yeah. But Jon's best known for being ex-Jon on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, where his wry sense of humor, his highbrow, slightly snarky conservatism, and his obsessive love of 80s new wave bands shines through. We've always pointed out, though, it's EXJON because the guy with EXJOHN is a jerk.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. You don't want to follow him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I grew up very poor, so my parents couldn't afford any extraneous consonants, so it's just JON.
Okay.
Save money at the typesetters.
Let's talk about the state of the Republican Party in the state that you grew up in. You actually wrote a piece recently headlined, Arizona Republicans can win in 2024 if that's really their goal. What do you mean by that?
Well, it kind of makes you wonder if these candidates even want to win, because you can make a whole lot more money losing and insisting that you won anyway. And it's great for book deals. It's great for appearances all over, not only on Fox, but Newsmax, any kind of right-leaning media. Playing the victim sells. And we've seen this on the left for decades. And boy, people on the right have finally caught on and went, this is a pretty good deal here. You could just stay rent-free at Mar-a-Lago and not make tough decisions.
So that's happening right now, I guess, with one former candidate who's also a current candidate. Do you really think Kari Lake's trying to throw the election?
Oh, boy. I don't think she's actively trying to throw it. I think she's enjoying the process and enjoying the ride. And hey, if she doesn't win, she will just say that it was stolen, and that'll be that. And she gets 2 more years in Florida. So what a deal.
So where has the Republican Party of Arizona, how did they get to this point, and how can they right the ship?
Yeah, I think anyone who's lived here for a while understands that the state party, you had this battle going on since at least 2000, a little before then too, with the McCain machine versus the grassroots. And in 2010, it was the grassroots was the Tea Party. It morphed into MAGA. Well, John McCain, sadly, departed this, shuffled off this mortal coil, and ever since then, the grassroots have been ascendant. Well, this is great for the grassroots, and I frankly have a lot of sympathy for a lot of the issues that they had, because I don't think John McCain was exactly a rock-ribbed conservative. The problem is they decided to waste their political capital on punishing the remnants of the McCain machine, and once they were all purged, hey, let's start attacking each other. Jeff DeWitt, you aren't MAGA enough. Actually, I was endorsed by Trump. Oh, yeah? Well, I stayed rent-free at Mar-a-Lago. So now it's internal fighting among just the grassroots. And they don't seem to think that winning elections should enter into the calculation at any point. It's all fights over who's going to be the precinct committee chair of this group in Ahwatukee versus that group, and that person slighted me. Guys, take the fight to Democrats if you actually want to win, especially because we have a situation in Arizona where the GOP won the party registrations by a long shot, and Democrats were third to the independents. Well, now independent registration outclasses Republicans, Democrats, and everybody else, and it's only growing. That is accelerating. People are tired of both the parties because they would like it, maybe kind of, if a politician would do their job for a couple of years.
That's asking a little bit much, don't you think? Don't you think? Wow. There's a lot to digest there. It is interesting, though, they've decided they don't need moderates, which a lot of people would describe McCain Republicans as moderates, although I always thought that he stood for fiscal conservative to the end, right? They're just not interested in that. And that just seems to be a losing proposition. Yeah.
It's just, I know many people who, from the far right to, frankly, the far left. I know people around here, and you have those kind of McCain Republicans, and say they're just 10% of their party. Well, if half of them voted for Carrie Lake for governor, she would be in the governor's office right now. So you need to build a coalition of your entire party plus a few people who are in the other party, or at least independents. And until you start doing that, you're never going to win an election. And it's common sense. It's simple arithmetic. But instead, people would rather go into this purity spiral. I always think of the old, if you read your history of the French Revolution, where you have the revolutionaries, and then you have a group that are more intense than them who get rid of the first revolutionaries. Then you have an even more intense group who get rid of the second group, and it just keeps going into this purity spiral. And Republicans just try to win an office or two. Then you can focus on everything else.
So what you're saying is the French were defeating themselves before the rest of the world defeated them?
Exactly. You got to surrender to yourself before you're ready to open it up to all comers.
So is the sign that Carrie Lake does not have any outside groups, at least at this point, who are interested in financing? Well, they can't directly finance her campaign, but at least run any ads for her. None at this point. And Ruben Gallego's already got $32 million that's going to be dropped into his corner. Is that a sign that Arizona is more MAGA than the rest of the country? Because we're talking about national Republicans saying, yeah, I don't think Carrie Lake's got a chance.
Yeah. And I think, too, she lost the gubernatorial race. And instead of admitting defeat and saying, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and look at the Senate, instead, most of it was spent, at least by all appearances, out of state, writing books, speaking about national issues instead of local issues. And any time her loss was brought up, alleging these increasingly bizarre conspiracies of why she actually won, but can't prove it in court, couldn't prove it at the polling station. So I think a lot of people are skeptical, and she has made a lot of enemies in a job. One reason I'm not a politician is I need to play nice with everybody if I actually want to win. She does not play nice with at least 50% of the party, and you're not going to get a lot of outside support. You're not going to be seen as consistent, a good bet if you do that.
But it makes for great fodder for you, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, the worst, politicians behaving badly is very good for people who write about these politicians. I wish I had less work on that front and we had a little bit better governance.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see the difference between a few different Republicans in Arizona. Of course, you got the ones who are no longer in office, like Matt Salmon, who helped found the Freedom Caucus, and now he's pretty much done with it at this point. And then you've got interesting candidates like David Schweikert. I wanted to talk about the possibility that he's in danger in Congressional District Number 1, because that is the wealthiest CD in the entire state of Arizona. And of course, wealthy, educated suburbanites have been leaning Democrat a lot lately, right? But I also wanted to talk about how he's walked this line, because he told me whatever it was, a year and a half ago, that Trump actually had endorsed him. But I never thought of him as a Trumper. How does he walk that fine line and others can't?
Well, I think it's important for him just to kind of reach out to people and not try to define a bunch of enemies. I think he used to be a lot more kind of Freedom Caucus, hey, let's slash the budget. But at the time, that worked really well in Arizona. But he realizes if he wants to keep in office, he needs to placate a lot of people who might not agree with him, who might not normally vote for Republicans. And yeah, you talk about this wealthy district. 20 years ago, you'd think, oh, well, that's a slam dunk for Republicans. But now on social issues, I don't know, hang out in north central Phoenix, very Democratic leaning now because, well, we don't support Trump. That's just not done. You're not going to put a Republican yard sign up in your front yard because, yeah, it just doesn't look good. And maybe the other lawyers of the firm will be a little, I don't know. Yeah, I might get turned down for a promotion. So, and I'm sorry, that's how most people vote. Most people don't vote based on, well, according to Federalist Paper 17, we should do this. Most people vote, it's like, well, what are my neighbors doing? Well, okay, yeah, I could vote for that person. And you need to accept that and understand it. I think Schweikert does. He understands kind of the baser political instincts of his voters.
Yeah, he has been, though. I have to say, he has been one of those guys in Congress who's been speaking up the most about the debt, though, too. I mean, he's been all over that. Yeah. He sends me a text every day on the debt. He literally does.
Right.
He set it up automatically without me even asking him to. And I haven't, done away with it, but I just keep seeing $3.1 trillion over the last year.
Right. And he's one of the very few who's been consistent on it, because usually when people get in power, they're like, well, I think we should spend more on my pet project. But he really has admirably been very consistent on it. And that's been a long-time winner in Arizona among Democrats as well. We don't want this far-off imperial capital wasting all our money. If we lived, in Northern Virginia, hey, we're benefiting from this. But when money is just extracted from the provinces on the other side of the country and spent in D.C., and every time you visit D.C., there's a few more Teslas, a few more hipster kombucheries, out there. There's new construction going on all the time. They're doing very well there, and I can create resentment.
It's very telling that during the Great Recession, the one metro area that grew and grew and grew, not just in population, but also in wealth, was the Washington, D.C. metro area.
Exactly. Bad times are good times. It is a nice place to invest, apparently.
Speaking of David Schweikert and his district, you lived in that district as a kid.
Yep.
And they destroyed your house.
Yeah.
I think this is a really sad tale. Can you share it with our audience?
The ADOT has a bullseye drawn around me. When they built the SR-51, they leveled my entire childhood neighborhood. My old paper route was gone, so they could make a thoroughfare. The sad thing for archivists, historical societies, is they can't make my childhood home a historical marker anymore. There was museum plans. And then on the other side of town, when I was attending ASU, I lived in an apartment complex, and one building was destroyed for the Price Freeway. That was my little section, the little 4 units, the building that I lived in, that was leveled also. So I have to keep one step past the bulldozers at all times.
If, for your neighbor's sake, you're not revealing your address.
No. I live in an undisclosed location. Exactly.
Okay, good. Yeah, in a bunker with Dick Cheney, too.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, right. So what is your prediction for this fall? Because you said Arizona Republicans, and you pointed out at the beginning of this article, by the way, that Republicans held all the top positions in state government just a few years ago, and that changed dramatically over the last few years. What do you think the chances are that Arizona swings back towards Republicans? It's going to be another 2 years before we get to the gubernatorial and the AG elections, all those things. Is there any chance that Arizona just swing back Republican.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance, but I think Republicans who just have to tailor their talking points not to the online right, but to regular people. Focus on, look, we all go to the grocery store, and every week it costs a little more. Run through McDonald's for a Happy Meal for your kid, and hey, where'd that $20 go? It's just, we're noticing this stuff every day. It should be an easy sell if we stop worrying about policing our own. Conservatives could instead try to reach out, and people are ticked off. If you look at most polling, Trump is leading for, who knows if that'll continue, but Joe Biden is wildly unpopular around the country. A lot of people are just going to vote for him anyway because of his opponent, but there is a real chance for Republicans to seize on this moment. I just hope that they focus on real issues affecting people. Voters, all polls say voters are most concerned about the economy. They're concerned about immigration. Stop focusing on esoteric issues or infighting. Focus on the thing that are affecting every one of us, no matter your income level, race, religion, party affiliation. It's affecting all of us, and right now that's the economy.
What are your thoughts on the debates that are coming up, the presidential debates, strangely being held even before the conventions, and at the insistence of both Biden and Trump, RFK Jr. is not going to be appearing.
Yeah. Neither will his brainworm. So we can be thankful for that.
That's just mean.
I know. I look at the preview of the debates, if you want to feel for it. Look at old episodes of The Muppet Show and those two old dudes in the balcony, Statler and Waldorf. That is what it's going to be. I can just see the campaign staff just terrified, chewing their nails on either side, because they're just hoping that nobody starts chewing on the lectern, that people aren't just gaffe machines, misstating things, falling off the dais. So it's going to be very difficult for the few people who love one or the other of these candidates, because I'm sorry, and it's not ageist to say, really, this is a very difficult job. There's no way I would just want to take a nap. There's no way I could do the presidency with all the work you got to put in. And it's going to be very tough for either guy to really rock it for the next 4 years. So it's an understandable concern that people have that our two best and brightest apparently are right around 80. So they've both lost a step, and it's that's why so many people have just kind of checked out of this election.
Yeah, I suggested this morning in my commentary that they didn't want RFK Jr. there at the age of 70 as the whippersnapper on the stage.
Exactly. Yeah. There was talk a few months ago about we need a centrist ticket. Why don't we have from both parties? We can have Romney and Manchin. And I'm like, they're both
labels.
80-ish. Yeah, but they're both 80-ish. It's just like, guys, okay, we need a little bit of new blood. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to be ageist, but I don't know. My grandma made it to a 101, and she was feisty until about the last year. And gosh, I'm half her age, and I'm already falling apart. So it depends on the person, but I don't think these two are very young and vital.
Do you want to talk about what your new gig is? I just saw this recently.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of different gigs, but my public-facing one is writing for Discourse Magazine. I do 2 columns a month for them, and I'm doing the series on kind of restoration. There's a link on my Twitter, but also Kite and Key Media. I'm writing scripts for them. They do explanatory videos, basically translating policy talk and spreadsheets into conversations and stories.
Wow.
So that's been a lot of fun, doing something a little different. I've written a few scripts already, and but again, it's kind of a nice light touch. It's not partisan party affiliated. Right. It's mostly, look, here's best practices that research has shown. Here's all the links if you want to delve into it deeper. But let's just explain this and show how a couple slight tweaks in policy can really improve the lives of everyone.
Yeah, see, this is the big brain that apparently never got affected hanging around a nuclear reactor on a sub.
It only grew when I was a reactor operator on a sub.
You're like a mutant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've been called worse. That's for sure. Yeah.
So, and I want to wrap up with that because I've always been fascinated with that. Sometimes I'll tweet at you on Veterans Day or whatever. I'm like, my favorite submariner is X John. What was that like? How long were you underwater at a time?
I can't say.
You can't say?
But yeah, I can say. For me, there's two kinds of subs, the missile sub and the attack sub. I was on an attack sub, which
so you didn't have to be underwater.
Exactly. The missile subs just hide for several months. With us, there was one 3-week deployment where we never popped to the surface. It's a different breed under there. And I went to Shadow Mountain High, Go Matadors, and after that, I was just like, okay, my advisor says, smart kid, doesn't apply himself. So I needed someone to whip me into shape. Went in the Navy, became a reactor operator on a sub, planning on, you know what, I'm going to go to officers candidate school. I'm going to be a great admiral. They'll be writing books about me. Yeah. After 10 days on the sub, I'm like, you know what? ASU. I remember sun. I remember the sun being involved, occasionally seeing other people. I think college. So yeah, I did my one tour of duty. Loved it. Glad I did it. But boy, oh boy, that is a different perspective. But then after you have that job, any other job, or especially college after that, you're like, this is easy. This is all I need to do. I don't need to stay up for 36 hours straight. So no complaints.
Oh, wow. Well, you still ended up with the Admiral look.
Yes, exactly.
Very nice.
Exactly.
Just need to get you a pipe or something. Yeah.
Oh, I have one. I have several. I'll bring it next time.
Okay. All right. I look forward to it. As long as there's only legal stuff right there. That's all I ask. Right. Once again, thanks a lot, John. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. And,
great to be on.
Yeah. Great. Catch him on Twitter, like you can miss him. EXJON. Remember the JOHN guy is kind of a jerk, so you don't want to go there. But thank you for joining us. I appreciate all your insight.
My pleasure. Love being on.
All right. And we will see you next time on the AZ Political Podcast.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharpe. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.